Hey guys, Nick here, and welcome back to another episode review for Daredevil Born Again. If you guys caught my review last week, it was obviously reviewing the first two episodes of the show, and we are jumping right back into the show with episode 3, The Hollow of His Hand. This was a really good episode, and I've seen some people, kind of like the show itself, just from the reactions I've seen on social media, that I wouldn't say the show has been, I don't know if I'd say divisive, but overall, there are a lot of people that say, oh, this is a big step down from the Netflix version, and that is too Disney-fied, which personally, I don't really see or feel as I watch. I will say that, for me personally, if you didn't watch my review of last week's episodes, I very much am enjoying the tone of the show, and that it does very much so feel like a continuation of those characters, of that tone, of that story. And that it doesn't feel too much like a soft reboot, which is what the show was initially. But, you know, I can't speak for others, but I just, to kind of address that criticism that a certain amount of people have, I just personally don't have that same criticism or worry about the show. I think there are some people who, like, unfortunately, like, see anything that Disney does and they're like, oh, it's wokeified and Disney's, it's DEI, blah, 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 blah. You're a racist idiot bigot, so, just, you're a loser, so I don't really care what you have to say, really. But, I mean, of course there are people with, like, valid opinions who are just like, I just don't feel like it's the same show, I don't feel like it's the same characters, I just kind of feel like they gave us an inch with Foggy and Karen at the beginning of last week's episodes, and then there's, like, essentially are doing a soft reboot. Which I think that criticism does have some merit, but it is kind of hard because I believe one of the showrunners or one of the producers came out in the last couple of days and said that, the majority of this season is are the episodes that they had filmed, written, and had produced when the show was still in its essentially rebooted format. And that the tail end of the show, as well as the scenes with Vanessa and obviously the stuff in the premiere, that's where the newer stuff that ties it into the Netflix show really came in. So as I'm watching, yes, I can kind of see that, like, okay, well, because there was the addressing of, like months ago, way before the show came out, that, pre-overhaul of the show, the Daredevil essentially wasn't going to suit up until like the back half of the show, if not towards like the very, very end. Which I kind of see that a little bit in these last couple of episodes. I hope that doesn't remain the case for the remainder of the episodes, that they are kind of just like doing their best to tie in as well as adapt to, the storyline of, the adding in of it being officially tied into the Netflix version. I'm still enjoying what we're seeing. I think this episode was really, really good. I like the court drama aspect of the show, and I liked it when they did it in the original show, too. Like, I don't need nonstop Daredevil action. I don't need, hallway fights to the extreme every few episodes. I'm very much okay with, like, obviously not the entirety of the show, but episodes like this where we get to see more of, again, Matt as a character, Matt doing his day-to-day job, which we didn't always see in the Netflix version, which we saw a lot of, don't get me wrong, but I just like seeing more of that. So I don't have a problem with him not suiting up in this particular episode, but I think the storyline in this episode of him defecting Hector Ayala as the White Tiger, the actor for Hector, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but he unfortunately passed away not too long ago after battling cancer, I believe. So rest in peace, and my thoughts goes out to his family. He was great in the show so far. I really like the character of White Tiger, and I've been talking about this with people in my life who either have seen the show or haven't seen the show. But what they have done with White Tiger, I wouldn't call him an essential character in the show yet. He was teased in the premiere and in the following episode, obviously, and then this was kind of like his big feature episode. I liked how the fantastical element of the character is there with his amulet that gives him his powers or enhanced strength or whatever. that it's just a matter of fact and they move on. Like, obviously, this is set in the world of the MCU where there's magic and aliens and advanced technology and AI and, like, all these different, like, fantastical things. But the show very much, which then this is another thing I appreciate, is that it still feels grounded. It's still that kind of street level, tone that the original series had. And that even with this introduced fantastical element, it doesn't necessarily feel out of place. Again, it's just a matter of fact. They bring it up because it's a part of the character, and then we move on. So I really liked how they've handled that in the show. And genuinely, it's just something I wish comic book media would do more of, because we don't need to have the addressing of fantastical elements sometimes as such like a big deal. Like, I understand in certain instances where like it's like a somewhat realistic universe, and then this fantastical thing is introduced, and then it becomes like the tone essentially changes to adapt to that fantastical element. I'm glad that in this series, like, we were kind of like so far removed from like the introduction of magic and all that sort of stuff that we can just address it, move on. So that, again, is something I really, really liked about the handling of White Tiger and that aspect of the storyline in general. I'm trying to think of anything else that really stands out as far as like minor plot points. One thing about this episode that I really enjoyed was because we still don't know ultimately what Fisk's plan is for kind of controlling the criminal underworld, other than he wants to kind of keep it quiet and hush-hush, in that there are no legal ties to him still being the Kingpin, even though he has pretty much said he doesn't necessarily want to be the Kingpin. But it's just been interesting to see how, like, this is the first episode where we kind of see bits of falling out within the criminal underworld, and like Fisk being such a public figure and what that means for all of these different, crime families and things like that. So I'm really curious to see how that pans out later in the season. And I think that also tying into Fisk's and Vanessa's marital troubles, which is something that, the original series, and I feel like Vanessa as a character, as we've seen, if you've read the comics, if you've read pretty much anything with Fisk as a character, or watched Into the Spider-Verse, or watched these shows, Vanessa is very much kind of like the driving force for a lot of what Fisk does. And to kind of see them at a point where there's a lot of tension, and it's not just like, oh, they're having marital issues. Like, she was essentially the Kingpin for however long he was recovering after being shot by Echo. And, for him to kind of come back and kind of almost re-seize power, and for her to have to admit that she had an affair, I think adds to the dramatic storytelling in this season that makes it so focusing more on Kingpin not necessarily doing criminal activities on in every scene that he's doing. I think that really makes it adds for more character development, adds more character depth, that these characters are more than just black and white bad. These are human beings with complicated emotions, complicated feelings, and complicated relationships. So I really like seeing that. And I'm just really happy that they brought back the actress for Vanessa. I'm partial to her as an actress because she played Clark's biological mom from Krypton, Lara, in Man of Steel. And as you can see, I'm a big DC fan. But and I really liked how she played the character in the original show. And when they announced that they were bringing the character back, but it was a recast, I was like, oh, well, I'm just not going to have the same level of attachment because it's the same character, but it's a recast with someone who wasn't recast. So there definitely would have been a lot of issues for me there. So the fact they brought her back really, I just think, makes the fact that they are tying back into that original show stronger, in that you have this history in seeing these two characters and the building up of their relationship, where it ends in season 3, to now see where they are however many years later, and their relationship is a lot more complicated. So I really like seeing that, and the actresses have always been great. So I'm really digging that part of the storyline. Now to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this episode with the trial, I genuinely liked every single bit of it. I think, the dirty cop storyline, granted, is something in media that we've seen a lot of, especially within Daredevil, we've seen a lot of dirty cops. And I'm curious to see how the storyline develops in further episodes, because as we kind of find out, spoiler if you haven't seen the episode by now, but the episode ending with the tease of Punisher shooting White Tiger in the head and presumably killing him. It's adding to that, because they've been teasing over the last few episodes that cops are like identifying with the Punisher, with his symbol. We don't know fully what that means yet. And as the episode ends and we see, big Punisher logo in broad view, I think a lot of fans, myself included, have kind of just theorized or hypothesized that, it doesn't make sense for Punisher to do this. And seeing all of the cop propaganda with these, the Punisher symbols on their neck and whatnot, and then the street graffiti art, very much, I think, being on the nose with reality and how many cops have taken that Punisher logo and taken it as like a symbol of the police and a symbol of cops. And if you know anything about the Punisher's character, he's very anti-police, anti-establishment. So that's, I think that's the route they're going with the character and with the storyline. So on that level, I think, seeing all the dirty cops and, and White Tiger stopping it and him being blamed and all that stuff, it's been really, really interesting. And I just like seeing, dirty cops in media get their comeuppance, because unfortunately there's a lot of times in real life where, unfortunately dirty cops get away with it. But it's been it's something in TV that, even though some people might say, oh, we've seen this too many times, it's just, if you're in any way a crime show, you see dirty cops at some point. So like, I get that criticism to a degree, but I don't feel like it is something that, at least in this show, feels like it's either out of place or overdone. I feel like it very much fits in with the tone of the show and something that we've seen before, while also, tying it into make it more than just villain of the week, story of the week with these dirty cops. And with the trial, I think, again, the court stuff is great. Having, the witness who was essentially getting the guy who was essentially working for the cops, and when they were beating him up in White Tiger and Ravine, and him essentially being like, yeah, I'll speak for you guys, and then ultimately having to change his mind because he was probably either bribed or they got to him and his family or whatever the case was, where he was basically lying on the stand. Again, it makes for really interesting storytelling. It makes, because as much as you want to have the good guys win immediately, for a drama like this, obviously you can't win instantly. There has to be, especially in court cases too, you got to make it interesting to watch. And I like how they handled that in this episode. And then honestly, just everything with White Tiger has been really, really good to me. And it's just something that when the trailers are coming out, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Marvel Comics fan. I am very casual at best. Like, I play Marvel video games, like Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales, like those games. I grew up watching the X-Men movies. Like, so basically, like, most Marvel stuff out of the comics is where a lot of my Marvel knowledge comes from. I've done like my own personal research here and there, but for the most part, my knowledge comes from just shows, movies, and video games. So White Tiger is a character that I have pretty much no knowledge of outside of this show. But even that aside, I think the character is really cool. It's cool seeing another street level superhero. I think the suit looks good. And the actor, again, it's sad that he passed away, and I hope that there's more to this character, and that he wasn't just killed off, because he was a really great foil for Matt and kind of helping Matt deal with his own internal struggle with Daredevil. And I just think the acting was just great all around, and his chemistry with Matt was great. And just everything that they did with this character was something that I really appreciated watching, even if ultimately this does kind of end up being somewhat of like a one-off appearance of this character. I'll be very happy with it. As much as I'm sad that they seemingly killed him off for the time being, I thought it was handled really, really well. Other than that, I'm just very happy with the pace of this show so far. I'm enjoying it, and I'm just happy to have a Marvel property that I'm excited to watch again. I've had complicated feelings for the MCU for a really long time. There have been properties that are movies or projects that I've been really into. The Loki show has been probably my favorite MCU project of the last 7-8 years. I think the Hawkeye show was really, really good. I thought Deadpool and Wolverine was fun. But I've yet to see like the Miss Marvel show, Secret Invasion, which I've heard is abysmal. So I don't know if and when I'm going to be watching that. A lot of the Disney Plus content and some of the more recent movies like I haven't seen. Ant-Man 3, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but mainly Guardians is because I fucking hate James Gunn, but that's a whole nother thing. I haven't seen the Marvels. Again, I haven't seen Captain America yet, but that's still in theaters. So I'll probably end up watching it once it comes to either Disney Plus or home media. But my whole point is that this show is the one thing that has brought me back to being excited about Marvel again. And I hope that the show sticks with its tone and its storytelling because I'm really digging it. And it doesn't have to be like Daredevil season 3 or Daredevil season 1 level of quality. As long as it's consistent in that tone and that in the attempt to tell a good story that is in line with that, I'll be happy. Because even like Daredevil season 2, I don't love it. It's definitely the weakest season of the 3. If it's at least at or around there, maybe even a little better, I'll be happy. So we'll see where it goes. And yeah, so I think that's all I really had to say about this episode. It was a really good premiere. Sorry, not premiere. It was a really good season 3 episode. Sorry, my mind's all over the place right now. It was a very good, solid episode. I am excited for next week and to see if that is the episode that we see Punisher again. If not, I don't know if that's something they're going to like save for further down the road. But either way, I'm excited. And it's just been a really good watch so far. So far, so good. All right, if you guys like any of my content, go ahead and hit subscribe below. I'm trying to get back more into posting content regularly, starting with this show. If you guys are interested in any of my other content, I've mainly covered like DCEU projects in the past or Zack Snyder projects in the past. I've also tried to do like some Lord of the Rings content, but that's kind of slowed down in the last couple of years just because life has gotten really busy for me. And just media in general has just kind of been like somewhat exhausting for me to get into, with a few exceptions here and there. So there's something you guys think I should talk about, and maybe we'll give it a shot, or I might do some more like reaction videos or discussion videos down the road. So we'll see. If you guys like more of this, definitely let me know. If you guys have any thoughts or want to discuss anything about this episode, definitely let me know in the comments. Thank you guys again, and until next time, have a good one.